In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to begin to modify and manipulate the surfaces of basic primitives in Clara IO. When you first go ahead and create a primitive, such as a cube or a box, in this 3D modeling program, you'll notice that we have 6 basic sides to our object. If you navigate to the Tools tab on the left-hand side, there are a few different selection options that you're presented with. The default is to select the entire object. So when I select this object, you'll notice that there are these light brackets that appear around the object. However, our 3D objects are composed of multiple surfaces or multiple faces that can be manipulated. With a basic primitive such as a box, if I switch from the object mode to the face mode, you'll notice that I can then highlight each face of the box individually, and by selecting one face of this box, I can transform one side of that box. In addition to faces, there are the edges of an object that you can select and manipulate. In this case, I could pull on one edge of a box to transform it. Finally, there are vertices that you can also activate. And instead of pulling on an edge, I can pull on a specific point. So these all allow you to modify your object in different ways. Depending on the object that you want to begin to modify, you may want to increase the amount of surface divisions to your object. With the box, each face is not divided into any additional subdivisions. So if I wanted to manipulate multiple points on this box, what you would want to do is navigate to the right-hand side of your menu, and with your box selected, underneath Polymesh, you'll want to go down to the where you can see depth, width, and height segments, which should all be set to 1 at the moment. Depending on which primitive you select, there may be different default settings. So for the depth, if I increase this number to 3, you'll notice that there are more subdivisions that are added to some of the surfaces. And you can see that by these additional lines. If you cannot see those lines, at the top of your viewport next to perspective, if you are in perspective, click on realistic and click on show edges. So showing edges will show you the basic wireframe of your object that you're working with. In addition, I can add some width segments and some height segments. So these segments that I add to my object will allow me to further manipulate and be more specific about the transformation I want to do to the surfaces. If I go back to the face tool and I select multiple faces, I could then begin to pull parts of that face up and down. You'll notice that right now it's just pulling the entire surface up and down. If I just select one face, it'll pull that face as well as the edges that that face is connected to. Selecting the edge tool, I could select one singular edge and pull that edge forward or inward. And you'll notice that with all of these tools, there are multiple options for selecting. So if I wanted to, instead of select one specific edge, and I wanted to select a ring around this object, I could go to the left-hand side and click on Select Loop, and now I have an entire ring around this cube selected. I could then move and manipulate this and begin to have more control over my modifications. Selecting ring, depending on where you're selected, will then create a ring around a specific part of your object. While moving it will push or pull the surface. You can also use something like the scale tool, and by clicking on the sphere in the center, you could scale that down, pinching the object together. Or you could even scale it up, so widening the object around one point. Navigating to the vertex selection, I can select one object or one point or multiple points. And the easiest way to select multiple adjacent points is to scroll down until you see the grow and shrink option. So the grow option will allow you to select points around the first point that you selected. And I can continue to scale my object, for instance, or I could even move it around a specific point. I could go back and shrink my selection and just work with one point specifically and manipulate that point. Any transformation that you do in Clara is recorded underneath the Properties tab. So I can go back and I can turn on and off different transformations that I've done. If there's something in specific that I don't like or that I want to get rid of, I can always just go here and press the X to delete a specific transformation that I've already done. Once you've manipulated your object, there is another option where you can begin to smooth out the surface and sort of smooth out the rough edges of your object. If you scroll down underneath the object selection, underneath normals, there's an option called Auto Smooth. Auto Smooth will sort of look at your object and normalize the vertexes and the faces of your object, so that way once you go to add a material over your object, it'll make more sense to the program.